charged the magnets years ago. I have a machine that charges these, and you have to charge them not running a current through them.
Okay.
The problem with anything earlier than 1935, the magnetism, that material is not that good. In 1935, they came up with Alnico 5, aluminum, nickel, cobalt. Far superior, holds a charge a lot longer. Now you have rare earth magnets. You could break a chip off a rare earth magnet stronger than this whole thing. And you have to understand the amount of energy you put in a magnet, you saturate it. When a glass of water is full, it's full. You can have a whole dam behind it. It doesn't matter. So in other words, these will top off, and it doesn't matter if you put 14 times the amount of energy. It won't make it any better.
Got it.
But this has been charged like 15 years ago.
Okay.
And I don't know if you can see the plug in there, but I'm demonstrating I can just turn it past when the field breaks, and
Yep.
the point's open and it fires, but that radio frequency will trigger this box.
One more time. One more time. That's awesome.
Mad scientist.
And then look at this. This is like the most amazing collection just floating around.
These engines,
Wow. This is the real shit, guys. This is like the lost knowledge right here.
see, people think because they're old they don't have any development in them, which is not true. And I'll show you. Here's a 1919 bicycle engine. It's French. And it has one exhaust valve. Of course, that's the magneto to supply the power, but it has one exhaust valve. That's over here.
Okay.
The intake valve is not operated by any mechanism. It's atmospheric.
Of course it is.
It has a real light spring. The minute the exhaust closes, there's enough suction inside the engine where it actually pulls the valve down. This is the mixer. That's like the carburetor for this thing, and it goes up here next to the spark plug. And the valve is in there.
Wow.
So it sucks the valve down, it runs, and that's how it runs. But the interesting part about this, you know, Doug was a wood pattern maker for years, and Doug looked at this. This is a sand cast cylinder, but it's steel. It's an iron cylinder. He said you would really play hell finding a foundry that could do this clean of casting. Look how thin those fins are. And that was done in 1919.
Wow.
Now, man, keep in mind it's a bicycle engine. So I took it apart. There's the crank in there. Most engines that have a pork chop flywheel. In other words, it's not full circle. It comes down and goes out. It's a
Okay.
balance weight. This has a full circle crank in it. Full circle. And there's a gear here. That gear drives another gear, which is a 2-gear force-fed oil pump, just like they run in NASCAR.
And what year is this again?
1919. Now this doesn't have main bearings, it just has bushings. And yet it's a force-fed oil system. So they get the oil to go to one side, and then it goes down into a cavity that goes across, it's pressurized, and they cast in. They cast in a tube on the back side of this, which I don't know if you can see. See in here? There's a tube.
Yep.
That's it's pressurized across, and it supplies the oil to the other side of the engine. So we're still getting to the best part of this thing. I took the halves apart. When you take the halves apart, they have two webs that stick out.
Okay.
When you put it together, the two webs form a shelf. You have a crank here, you have the oil here. You have a dry sump oil system, which they run in every race engine today. 1919 bicycle engine.
Now we know where the technology came from.
It's been around. It's been around. We just have better materials. No, I take a lot of engines and things to shows, big shows. I have that transporter, I've had it in here. I have a big 3-cylinder Hicks Marine engine, 1927, 500 horsepower. 1927, It puts out 27 horsepower at 500 RPM. So that's about 200 RPM less than your engine idles. And of course I have it at shows, I have it running. Because it runs at such a slow speed, I take the side plate off and you're watching the whole inside of the engine work while it's running. I point out two things to these kids who think they have all the latest in hot rod stuff. I said, well, this has two modern race features. And I know they're thinking, I don't know what those old boys think, smoking, but I said, well, look, there's a roller cam. It's a roller that follows the cam lobes, which modern engines have because of the profile of the cam. If you had a Chet Herbert roller cam in the 50s, you were somebody. Okay, and then you look at, I said, look up top. It's exposed overhead valves. Not a big deal. But you control the intake by variable cam timing. You have a hand crank on the intake rocker shaft, so it runs this way. When it's idling, the exhaust opens 3/4 of an inch and the intake's open 40 thousandths. That's less than a 1/16 of an inch. I think last year Mercedes throttled one of their cars that way. All electronic, is variable cam timing. It's how much mixture you pull in the cylinder is how fast it goes. Now here's this 3-cylinder engine. The engine weighs 3,500 pounds. It has a 500-pound flywheel. It has another 300 pounds of rod, crank, piston. So you have a lot of kinetic energy. And of course, engineers always say, yeah, but horsepower is horsepower. I've heard it from different engineers. And I said, well, you know, I'm going to pop that bubble. I said, where in the formula for torque, which is horsepower times 5252 divided by RPM, does it account for that 800 pounds of kinetic energy we just stored? It turns a 30-inch screw and it pushed a 44-foot Monterey fishing boat 9 knots. Today they'd put 2 diesels in it. It may go 10 or 11 possibly because there's a formula for hull line width versus length. But here's this big engine and it runs this day in and day out, and you know they don't see anything. I said, well, look, I'll put it this way. If you take 27 times 5252 isn't a real high number compared to our modern cars, 400 times 5252. But we're dividing it by 500, not 5,000 or 6,000 or whatever. And so that engine, if you just use the formula for torque, it puts out the same amount of torque as a 350 Chevy. However, a 350 Chevy probably wouldn't run longer than an hour pushing that boat because boat engines have roughly 7 times the loading on them that a car engine has. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and yet it's like it's on a dyno constantly.
Wow. Okay.
And yet this engine, 27 horse, that's, people get locked in horsepower numbers. And it's erroneous. I want to know how much torque is what's going to get you there. You could put on your little robot thing or whatever.
Are you the battle bot that we're going to build?
Yeah, if you put a high RPM, high horsepower electric motor on it, that probably puts out.
Wait a minute! Don't give away our secrets.
No, puts out probably 10 times more than the electric motor you're using now. It wouldn't do crap because it doesn't have the torque.
Yeah, I agree. It's all
That's
about
why
the
you
torque.
use the motors you're using now. It's going to do work, and people don't understand it. They get locked in all these numbers. You know, I have bicycle engines and stuff all over here. I have engines that actually run on fire.
Okay, we're going to pick up on this. My battery's about to die. So,
Yeah, I'll show you a little engine over here. These engines, they're called flame lickers.
Okay, hold that thought. We're going to come back on that. Okay. All right. And you want to give your name?
I'm Jerry Burak, B-U-R-A-K.
Okay, AKA the man.
Yeah, Victor calls me Jerry, geriatric.
Okay.
I said that's fitting.
All right. Thanks, my friend.